Good afternoon, friends, respected sirs. Today I welcome Mr. Anil Kumar Serawat, the Managing Director of Eternal Resource Group, Thailand. Sir has more than 28 years of experience in the energy sector, both in government enterprises and multinational companies. He has worked in various countries and across various continents. His major areas of expertise include business development, strategy, sales, marketing, project management, business excellence, and general management. In addition to this, he shares keen interest in organizational development and academics. Mr. Serawat is an MBA in International Business from Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, Thailand. Before that, he has completed his Masters in Engineering and Bachelor's in Engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, India. Currently, he is the Managing Director at Eternal Resource Group India Limited, Thailand. And before that, he has served as the Senior Vice President of Head of Strategy Marketing, Energy Sector for Siemens Asia in 2009-2010 and Vice President at Siemens India Limited. He has also had work experience with companies like Power Grid Corporation of India Limited and National Thermal Power Corporation Limited. I welcome you, sir. And he has also served as a visiting faculty at School of Management, AIT Thailand and Pearl School of Business, New Delhi, India. I request our esteemed faculty, Professor Dr. Kamal Kapil, to please present in a bouquet. I now request sir to please take us forward.
Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, all my dear students, Professor Dr. Kapil and gentleman Mr. Nilanchal, who is coordinating this session here. First of all, I thank Dr. Kapil. He was in Bangkok. He visited in relation to a conference which MDI is going to organize in Bangkok. It's an international conference, so I had an interaction with him and he invited me to address you people. And honestly speaking, I love to do that. It always brings me back 15, 20 years and I still feel I'm the same guy which I used to be 20, 25 years ago. So you have a very good chance today. Those who want to sleep can do so, because an afternoon might be, full with the stomach, and those who want to listen. First, if somebody can move this. But let me tell you, I'll make sure that none of you sleep. And honestly, I asked Dr. Kapil if I have to address any particular topic of interest to the students, and then he told me it's an introduction for these students. You are going to be inducted in this program. So I just thought to make it more interactive rather than making extempore and one-way communication. So please feel free whenever you have any doubt or any question. The management education is all about interaction, nothing else. So you have to learn. It's not a theory, that you go to the books. You can read at home. There's no issue in that. But to get more knowledge and to get more interaction, you must interact with the people, with your peers, with your professors, with the people you met across. So this is what. So I'm in general going to touch two things. What you should do as an MBA student. What you should get out of this. And second is, what are the mega trends in the world today, in the world of business. These are the two basic topics I'm going to touch. And hopefully it will be more interactive, and I hope you will enjoy this session. So let's start why you should be here. Does anybody have an idea why you should be here? Please feel free. And one thing you must, and I think your professor will tell you, and I was told when I entered in 1980 in my bachelor course, so one of the very renowned professor, he told us, he was called father of electrical engineering in India. So I did from electrical, and he told me to the whole class, there is no stupid question in the world. Answer can always be stupid, and we have answers for everything, let me tell you. One of the another professor, he got a prize which is called a mini Nobel in economics, and he said, we have answers, we have the tools, but we do not have the right questions. So for me, there's no stupid question, so please feel free. So why are you here? I want to ask you. Please.
To open up our minds to new opportunities and upcoming business that or those things right now through interactions.
Excellent.
Sir, I'm Pushpa, student of PGBM. We are here to meet like-minded people so that we can share what we know, we can celebrate the differences and share the similarities, and we can work towards to get a formal knowledge about the business.
Excellent. Anyone else?
So Kanika Tiwari, PGPM.
Pardon?
Kanika Tiwari, PGPM.
Okay.
We are here to groom ourselves to become good leaders, to learn to build network, and learn the real things that happen in the world after MBA.
Anybody else? Okay.
Anshu Patnaik, PGPM. Sir, I think we are here to get a better perspective, to get different perspectives on a same particular situation, since we have so many like-minded people who have gone through different experiences.
So if all you are like-minded, then where is the cross-fertilization of ideas? You have to have a different mind to bring in different ideas. Okay, anyway, it's good. Yes, please, gentlemen, the last.
So, Gaurav Baldeva, so PGPM.
Yeah.
So mention about like-minded people. So definitely the intellectual level is of similar level. That is what she mentioned about like-minded.
Right.
And you mentioned about diversity, that we come in when we come from various work background and being a fresher.
Good.
So that is where the diversity comes into picture.
Okay.
The cross combination of freshers, work
Yes.
that brings in different insights into a particular situation. That is why we are here, to have a learning experience.
Very good. Excellent.
So Pulkit Jain, PGPM. I would like to add to his point by saying that he's very much right in saying we all have different work experiences. I would also like to say we all from different parts of India. So we all bring with us different perspectives from north, west, south, east India. So I think that will also contribute to an extent.
Even in a parliament, there's a one main person who asks the question, and there are supplementaries there. Okay? So I would prefer you ask the main question, so that you speak your mind. Okay. Please.
PGPHR, Pallavi Mishra. Sir, we are here to learn from the faculty. We are in one of the top preschools in India, and we have excellent faculty here. So we are here to gain their knowledge.
How do you know they are the excellent faculty?
Because they are
You just entered his institution.
So we know that they have excellent educational background, they have experience of industry, and they have the teaching experience also.
Very good. She researched well before she picked up the MDI. Thank you. Please.
Anirban Mohanty, PGPM 199. So adding to her point, when esteemed people like you give keynote approaches to us, so methods like these develop our holistic approaches to development for professionals.
Excellent. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much for some of the nice questions, and which will be part which I will be talking on that. So the first of the thing which as a student here, it's a wonderful time for you to stop and think. Very few people, this is a very big and huge cost for you. When you entered in this, I would say, one of the best business school in India, you toiled very hard. You cracked very competitive exams to enter here and go through a very rigorous selection process. That's one part. That's not the whole story. You pay high tuition fees, whatever it is, plus the opportunity cost which you have to go for. So MBA is a very expensive education, and it's all over the world. So people come generally with in mind that okay, we will get a better career after doing my MBA, we will get a bigger jump. This is one part of the story. I hope and I wish certainly you will get much more fatter paychecks when you leave this institution. But the question is why only this check matters, so there is something beyond that. And I believe there is something beyond that you must take, you must stop, you must ponder. It's an amazing opportunity for you people that you have this luxury, I would say, to sit here for 2 years and do something which you want to do. Believe me, when you are, and most of you might be, having some corporate experience also. I don't know how the batch composition is, but it is very hard and very difficult when you are in a regular corporate life to think something which you want to do. You are in a machine and you are working like that. So people have different perspective on that. But this is an amazing opportunity for you people that you must really stop from that giggles which you do every day and think what you want to do. It's a great opportunity to change that career. Let me give you my own example. When I was a student in MBA, I could have easily scored a 4-pointer just by doing 25% of the work which I did. But for me, opportunity cost was very high, though I was on an international scholarship there, and I was paid by my corporation also. But even that, I feel that I'm investing my time. So I read on every topic, whatever was available in the library. Whether it is a corporate finance, it's marketing, organization development, whatever the professor prescribed was one thing. And in the whole course of this process, some of the professors become very close friends of mine, and even till today. So learn, and whatever you can read on it. This opportunity will never get it. This is one thing you should take out of this MBA course. Then another thing which is very important is the alumni network and the friends you will make. There are saying in USA, when you go to a business school, when there is an induction program going on, so one of the very high-rank professors was telling me that we expect 40% of them get married to each other. So I don't know how many will be that you will be doing, but you will make really great friends. This is a chance for you to interact, to get close to people. Some of you will be making a very high career in different fields, whichever field they choose to. And these will be your permanent assets when you enter in the corporate life. I was in Vietnam a week ago. I was telling that my travel is quite big. One thing he didn't mention, I have taken over as the CEO of a company also, another company. So it's a joint responsibility, so I have to travel a lot. So he told me, the guy I was going and I was interacting, he told me, oh, I'm going to introduce to it. There are 14 people in the committee, like Central Committee in Vietnam, which control the whole country. It's a communist kind of system. So they are the 14 powerful people who control the whole country. And he said, there is one gentleman, Dr. Bing, I will introduce to you. So when I went there to meet him, and then I saw suddenly, oh, this was the guy, he was in AIT before. And then he asked me, I did my doctorate from AIT, great institution, you know that? And then I told him, yes, I know, I'm also graduate of AIT and I'm believe. And it was so easy after that, you won't believe it. So these are the things which you will take permanently. Make great friends here, cherish that friendship, and take it as long as you are there. This is even some of the references. I was addressing one of my alumni meet in Cambodia. They invited me for a dinner talk, and then I told them, and I was amazed to see so many people in so many high rankings they are there, that you just pick up a phone and whatever you want to do or you want to get the information, you will get it. Some of them are ministers now. So this is what I'm saying, that this is the network, this is the intangible which will be much, much better than anything you gain over here. You have to cherish it and you have to take it along. So this is the second issue which you should do and you should take it. Then another issue is, you all are definitely intelligent guys doing great jobs, maybe whatever experience you have. I guess you are in your late 20s or 20s or 30s starting, and you had a great time, might be in your corporate life. But the problem happens that when you are in a very specific field in your zone of comfort, you always think that you know everything. You are best of the best. You are definitely, I don't doubt on that. But when you come to such an institution and then you see the interaction with the wider knowledge, wider, I would say, horizon, and I would guess now it is more international here, that you get a different interaction, then you will see yourself, how small you are, how little knowledge you have. Emerson once said that more I read, more I feel that how less knowledge I have. So this is where you need to think and think the global ideas. Interact with your, I don't know how much chance you will have to interact with another business schools worldwide, or you might be going on some internship programs or exchange programs, this I don't know. But if you are there, try to get those ideas, internationalize, think globally, look at the knowledge body which is available globally, and then you will realize, yes, there is a horizon which I can expand. So that is what is a time for you to think and to get those ideas. Debate them, research on them, and then you will definitely come out with something which is you never have thought of it. Something very creative. And this is one time and one place where you can get in your life and you can do those things. Even in multinational corporations, I worked in Siemens for almost 17 years and in different continents in the world. But when you go to a certain place, then you are restricted to that. Here there is no restriction on you. You can do today research on Latin America, you can do research on Europe, you can do research on SAARC country. So that's, everything is available to you. You have wonderful resources in your library, you have professors who have international knowledge. So interact with them. Get it and try to horizon, broaden your horizon, what you think. The next point is very important, and this is my personal experience also, and the experience of most of the business leaders all over the world. Indians are great individuals, but they are very poor in teamwork. This is one of the things you will listen everywhere. You go to any country and you will find that this tendency is real. We have a tendency to feel jealous. We do not compete, we do not collaborate. Rather, we try to pull the leg of each other so that the end result is, it's a self-destruction. And today, world is like this. Be it is academic, be it is business, be it is anything, you cannot work in these worlds. It has to be collaboration across the teams, across the functions, across the countries, across the companies. Even the fiercest competitor, look, Samsung and Sony, they are very, big rivalry among them, but they still put the joint plants, they still put the joint R&D. So this is the field, this is the, it's the reality of the ground, you cannot ignore it. So Indians have to learn how to work in a team, and business schools give them great opportunity to do that. You will be doing number of projects in a team. In all business school, they take the projects, I would guess every 2 weeks or every 1 week you will get a common project where you will know how to work in a team, how to lead that team. That is what you have to learn. Barring the content of the technical knowledge or the functional knowledge, that is okay, that everybody will get it. That functional knowledge even you can get by reading book yourself. But the very interaction which takes place and the very dynamics in the team which takes place, that you need to understand how to lead those teams. And these teams, the first was invented by Japan, because the whole industrial revolution took place through small kaizans, small teams, but it's a worldwide phenomenon. You have the now corporations, you are making one component in one country, you are doing software somewhere else, you are selling and marketing expertise somewhere else, your R&D somewhere. So you have to work across the cultures, across the teams. And if you can get neck of team, believe me, I can assure you, you will be the most successful leader. The very good example I give you, Dr. Kalam, he is not an academician. He never did his PhD. Many people know Dr. Kalam, but it was an honorary conferred to him. He never did his PhD. And he was one of the best leaders you can find. He managed team across in thousands of people. He knew how to do that. So that is very important, that Indians have to learn this skill, that you have to be a great team player and a great leader in a team. Please don't, I give you, my son he graduated, his high school in 2012. So by God's grace, he was just the best outstanding student of his batch. There were 2 students, and I told this story a number of times to my business colleagues. The girl was very much competitive with him for a certain position. and he was the president of the student council, so he cannot take many positions at a time. So they made a special position for him, and she was heading that club. That was UN club, basically. So I was there when his name was announced, and there was a minister giving him the award. She was the first jumping, almost few feet, and wow, that is the kind of spirit you must have. You need to compete, collaborate, but don't be jealous. That is where the success lies, and they are very good friends. Both are in States now, talk regularly on almost every month or something. Whenever they go, they meet each other. So that is what has to be done. The problem is our culture brought up is like that. We always tell them, cut the guy, whatever it is the result. And that does not work in business anymore. You are the young breed, you have a chance to develop this habit, you have a chance to change your genetic system. Please do it. You will be immensely successful. Indians are great, very hardworking, very intelligent people. But when it comes, I don't know, somehow they fail. So you need to develop those teams. Then another, as I already mentioned to you, that it's a global economy now. None of the country can afford, or none of the business can afford to be in isolation. So whatever you do, whatever you think, we always think have a global perspective. How it is going to integrate yourself in the global economy. How your business is going to face the challenges of the global economy. So because you see there is a recession in one country, by 91 we were a closed economy. But fortunately India was never academically closed. We always have interaction world over, and you see the fruits when we start opening up. And now we are in a stage that in most of the countries in the world, that even if they want to isolate themselves, they cannot. The corporations cannot do that. You have global sourcing, you have global R&D, so you just can't do it. So keep in your mind the horizon, don't think only the small companies here working in India, have a wider outlook. And here you can do that, you have a chance. You can change your perspective completely. Then another issue which I would like to touch, you need to find some of your good professors, and the best guide for you is your seniors. Whenever you enter in an institution, in a university or a college, most of seniors will tell you, hey, this professor is very arrogant, this professor is a great guy. You need to find those good professors, because they are the one who is going to challenge you. And in the process, you need to learn how to develop the mentorship. There's a recent, phenomenon in all corporate world. They find out their top executives, and then they try to assign them mentors. So it's better if you go to your boss and tell him that I would like that gentleman to be my mentor and I will manage it. So this mentorship, you have to learn how to develop it. Because those great guys are not easy to handle. Believe me, academics has more ego than anybody else. So if you can manage those things here, you can manage very well in your practical life, in your corporate life. So I give an example, my son where he is studying, Barack Obama studied there. So he had a professor from the Department of Political Science. They call it DWA, Diplomacy and World Affairs, but it's a political science department. So that guy gave him B grade. And then Barack went to him that, Professor, I think I deserve more. That's what you think, not I think. So you don't deserve to give more than B. So I give you B. It's a very healthy tradition. You can challenge him, you can argue with any professor over there, there's no issue. So when he became the president, he was the first professor to be invited to White House. And he told, Professor, you give me B grade, but I passed in A grade in the real politics. So I'm the president of the United States. So that's kind of, but he had tremendous regard for this professor. He's really a great professor. You need to develop those mentorships. Need to find out. Then they will, when they have a feeling, yes, he is my, disciple, my real student, then they will start challenging. I had a lot of interaction with one of my very young professor. You will be surprised, he was a sports teacher, sort of, not a teacher, I would say, he was a kind of coach. from Switzerland. He changed his complete career. He did his doctorate and then he became a professor of international business and strategy. He was a very good, great friend of mine. We used to swim together. And then I keep on, challenging him with many ideas in class, outside class, whenever we have a cup of coffee or beer. And I tell him, look, Urs, I think your concept is completely rotten, it's gone. So what are you talking? He used to call me sometimes General Sraut. He said, you challenge my ideas like an army general. So he used to say that. We became such a nice friend. Whenever he comes to Bangkok, or if most likely next month I'll go to Geneva, whenever I go, we make it a point that we meet either for lunch or a dinner. Then this guy worked for Michael Porter for 2 years. And you will be surprised, he had the same issue with Michael Porter. And Michael Porter ensured that he doesn't stay in Harvard anymore. So he came back to Geneva. But great professor, great friend, always very nice. So these are the things you have to develop, because then you get a different perspective. They will challenge you. And you will get some different new ideas out of it. So please have some mentorship with someone. I don't know the professors here, but you will find in the course of that who is good, who is great, who has connections, who has different wide diversity of ideas. Please do that. And that knowledge, that training will take you very far in your career. So another chance is to refocus yourself. You will hardly get a chance in your corporate life or anywhere, even in academics. If you are, for example, a professor of marketing and you want to change your field to finance, it's very hard for them. But you people have this amazing opportunity. You may be from manufacturing, you may be from marketing, you may be from another sales. You want to be in finance, you can do it now. It's very hard when you are in job to change from one department to another, except the typical Indian bureaucracy where you can do anything. You can move anywhere, wherever you want. Okay, but you have a chance. Think on it. Whatever field you want to choose, maybe after your first semester, you will have a broader idea. And then you try to look at the field which interests you. Please, my really an advice as my lovely young friends to you, don't do anything which you don't like. Believe me, never ever you will succeed. You will keep on doing, you will have different incentives, but what is coming really from your heart? And if you choose that, you will excel, you will shoot like a rocket. That is where the maximum efficiency and effectiveness. Do you know the difference between efficiency and effectiveness? Anybody? Please.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Mohit Singha, PGP IMR. Efficiency is the output over the input. That is how much effort you have put in and what is the output. And effectiveness is, for example, in a situation, how effectively we are able to get the result. Means how effectively we are able to solve the problem even with lesser effort or more effort. That is effectiveness.
Good. Did you ever heard the second law of Newton? What is that? No, that's the third law, not the second law. Sorry, I understand many of your physics. Yes, that's what it is. So, what is a typical? I say, efficiency is something related to process. I tell you that today morning. I tell you, you keep on pushing the wall. You need to do this job. So you are highly efficient employee. You keep on pushing the wall till evening. You get tired, sweating hard. But what is the result? Zero. There was a force, there was mass, but you couldn't move that. So you are effectively, you did nothing. Your effectiveness is zero. Effectiveness is when you get the result out of it. Okay? You could be highly efficient in your process, but unless you get the result, your effectiveness is zero. And that's your great Prime Minister is telling to the bureaucrats every day now. I don't need your process, your plans, I need the results. And that's where anybody, any corporation, any company, any country, any organization need effectiveness. So you need to be effective. So if your passion lies what you are doing, you will be 100% effective, believe me. And I tested some of time in my, that the project which I really was dear to my heart. Siemens Thailand, we were responsible for the reason, but in the global scheme of Siemens, It's not a reason like China or India, because here we have big volumes. But I was still in the core steering committee of some of the worldwide initiatives. And it was because of that, some of the initiatives was very dear to my heart. And it was a passion, so we drive it very well. So that is what you have to choose. So choose now, focus on it, and choose it early. Select the right courses for that, do your internships in that, and then you will be excelling in your career. So that you have to do a bit early, not only when you are finishing 2 years and then you have the placement with your placement coordinators and you are put up somewhere, somehow in some company. Okay, maybe some incentive in the monetary terms, but believe me, you won't succeed there. You will be somewhere stuck up, but if you choose your passion and you do the right preparation for that, then you will fly. Okay, so this is what something you do. Another thing, you have a great business plan, right? Some of them are very good in analytics, some of them very good in ideas to put up a right business plan, to put up a right targets, models. Where is your success lies? Anybody?
Execution.
Please?
Anish Padwar, PGPI.
Yes.
Execution of
Execution, yeah, that is the post part, before execution. You have an idea, you have made a business plan, something you have to do before you are given a go-ahead.
Ankit Raja, PGPM. Attracting the clients, forming a good client base, and building a good brand reputation.
It's running for PGPS. We have to make a good team to it.
Okay.
Should be PGP अच्छा. I think we need to have a vision of where we are heading.
Okay, I repeat my question again to cut it short. You have a vision, you have a plan, you made it already, right? And then you are about to, you have to get it at something to do before you start the work, right? Customer, I agree, could be external or internal, right? What you have to do, please.
PGPM.
Yeah.
I think we need to get like-minded people and a team to go together.
Okay. You have that one also. Then what do you do?
Then the idea would be better propagating among us and we can formulate.
You have that one also. Gentlemen.
My name is Ankush from PGPM. I think you need to be a good leader to.
You are already a leader. Yes, you are leader. Then next.
You need to motivate the people with you to work.
That is also there. Next. Please.
So we need to make a presentation to sell the idea.
Excellent. Yeah. This is where. And what do you do in that?
So we actually have to, we already have a business plan.
What's your name, please?
I'm Akanksha.
Akanksha.
HR.
Akanksha, you have right here, and I call you here and ask you to make the presentation. What do you need?
I need to have a clarity on, first of all, what I have to make a presentation on.
Okay.
I have to have.
You have a clarity also. Then next.
So then I'm going to need some visual tools with which.
You have the tools also. Then.
And I have to communicate it really well.
Yes.
And we have to sell it to the person.
So, gentlemen and the ladies and the, my dear students, this is what you can only achieve here in your MBA classes. When you are with your peers, you are always shy. I can tell you, there was a research by Carnegie Mellon Foundation, and it was found that many people prefer to die rather than making a presentation on the public. This was a research finding. This world is whole about convincing, your peers, convincing your seniors, putting through your plans which others people buy in. You may have a great idea. There are thousands of great ideas and plans, running around in the world. Nobody is the taker. Those guys, the same guy, Steve Jobs, he has a great plan, but he couldn't convince his board. He was fired. Right? He came back, made it from such a great corporation. Some of the people have a great art, how to convince the people, how to make the presentations. That is all about you have to learn here. This is, I can tell you there are students, you people are God-gifted, endowed with good communication skills in English. But in the different countries, in different part of the world, people are not so fortunate. And they used to asking me, I said, look, gentlemen, we were slaved by Britishers for 200 years. At least we should have some parting gift from them. So now we want to rule them. So many English teachers from India are teaching in Britain. So this is what, so please use this time. Make mock presentations. You will be exposed in any case to make different presentations in different groups for different reports, but please master that art. This is one of the key success factor for any business leader. If he cannot communicate, if you cannot communicate to your team, you cannot communicate to your board members, there will be, I can tell you, almost zero chance that you can succeed. But if you are good, and MBAs are basically, presentation savvy, if they, I must admit, I'm not that good in electronic tools. I'm very happy to make a give a lecture at Stanford. I'm very happy, and I can talk on any topic, is no issue. But you people have to be more on this. Sometimes my son guides me, Papa, you don't know me, I can bring this effect in this, it's okay, fine. So please use this time. Make as much presentation as you can. Get a mastery before you leave the institution. So these students come from China, Vietnam, even in European countries. They were very, they were not aware how to really make this. When they passed out after 2 years, they were excellent. But they put up very hard work. Believe me, the Chinese students, very few people realize they do almost 3 times the work Indian do. Almost 3 times, I can tell you. They used to go to the class, listen there, put their tape recorders, come back to their room, listen that lecture 3-4 times, take their dinner and also play. Physical exercise, they never forget. Go to library, again listen the tapes. And then next morning, they used to come and tell us, Mr. Salawat, I prepared this thing. I said, very good. So this is, but you people are God gifted, use this time. Just come out of that inhibition that you cannot do, make a great presentation. Everybody can do that. It's not a God gifted thing. God gifted thing is public speaking in a political sense. But these things you can learn. They can be acquired by practice. So please do that. This is one of the things out of MBA everybody must take. And if he's not successful in that, it means I will simply say he wasted his time, effort and money. So please be careful on that. Another good thing, I'm pretty sure this institution might be inviting a lot of speakers here. They are great leaders in their own sphere, own business. Please do not miss even a single presentation. That's a great opportunity you will never ever find, even in large corporations, any multinational. Either you will listen to your own business leaders, maybe if my group CEO is coming from Germany, vice president and above will attend, the rest are gone. Okay, so you will never have a chance. I am fortunate, I'm living still in AIT. I at least met more than 23 Nobel laureates because we have this series, Peace and Horizon, something like that, where they used to invite every month one Nobel laureate and they make the presentation. So it was a great chance for the people, students, professors to interact with them. We invite a lot of business leaders, a lot of people in the social sphere, have large NGOs, philanthropists, all these people. Please interact with them. Try to know how the great leaders, what is great about them, how they reach that process, how did they internalize that process so they become great leaders in their own sphere. And mind it, it's not only business leader you have to interact. Leaders across that. You may be having some classes on leadership and motivation, I don't know, in different forms and different lectures. But these are theoretical foundations. So these are some special situations in India that you need to know how to manage that. Right? So I will manage without special mindset. So what happens, and these people come, so here you will have a chance. Nobody, no director, no professor will say, okay, you cannot meet this professor, this speaker, or you cannot interact with them. How to find them, how did they in their initial career in their business? What are the great ideas, how they generate ideas in their organization, and how they execute them? What are the key characteristics of a successful organization? So these are the things you can, but please don't be, sometimes people think, oh, this is every week affair, every I will miss it, I will attend next month, but you never know when you will lose. This Body Shop CEO, Rebecca, I met her, great lady, great exceptional talent. You just talk to her within 2 minutes, you will realize an aura around her that she's a great leader. So you will really something find very unique. I was talking to Amartya saying, great guy, you know, sometimes his English is difficult to understand even. I don't know how he does it. He's a great writer. I was asking him some economics questions and he was telling me philosophical questions. That's how sometimes it happens with these guys. I was asking how the income disparity affects the countries, and he was asking me, who is the happy person? With $1,000, a person with a $10,000 income, or a person with $1 million, or a person with $1 billion. So instead of replying me, he asked me counter question. So something to really learn. So please, my advice is, use this opportunity. Ask your professors, make your groups, approach the good corporate leaders, request them to be here, and then interact with them. And some of them in interaction you will find also, you know, sometimes good employment opportunity. that's right. So that's what I think you people should take it from your MBA course since you are here. If anything, any question till this part, I think we are well in time. So please feel free. Any other expectations, anything would you like to ask me? And one very technical aspect, analysis part is very important. In any business role you are there, if you have an analytical mind, you can analyze different options. It will always be helpful to you. So please do those kind of things. So any question? Good, please.
Sir, since you have worked across countries with different range of people, so I would like to ask you that would you like to share with us a lesson which is not from the book that you have learned with this experience and that will help us in managing and leading things better in the future?
Okay, good. Very good question. See, there is no syllabus in the world which can teach you day-to-day problems. Anything, I mean, why this GMAT and some of the examinations are about language? Did anybody has thought on that? Why there is a substantial share of your evaluation is based on English, which is a pure language. Please.
Aditya from PGPM.
Yeah.
The basic idea of the MBA course is to present your ideas. So when you have to explain your ideas, the language is a very important tool. One must have to express his views and to communicate the idea.
You are right. It's a communication tool, but why is only English? It's not that. It can be. You don't talk to French like this, right? It will kill you. See, the idea was your certain IQ capabilities are related how you learn the other language than your mother tongue. Okay? The test was conducted in English because it's the by far the most international language. So they just don't want to test your language, but just want to test your IQ through that test. That was the reason behind it. So that's a question she was asking, I tell you. The cultural sensitivity plays a very big part. When you deal across the countries, across the cultures, you have to be very sensitive. I was in Kenya. When I was in Germany, I was responsible for East Africa. So Siemens got a big job after 18 years. Okay? The ABB managing director, he was there on the bid offering, I was there. So he said, look, this bloody Indian came and we have to close our business here. See, what should have been your normal reaction? If he would have said to an African, he would have killed him. Africans are very, very aggressive people. Okay? And I was not very, I would say, very mellowed person in my student. I was a very furious person. So, but living in Thailand for so long time, they're very nice people, so I met them. Many of my friends, one of my batchmates is a professor here. They don't believe even. So I said, gentlemen, could you have said the same thing to a Kenyan here? Oh, come on, my God, they will kill me. I thought you are, I don't mean something negative, But believe me, he said to me, congratulations, you really did an excellent job. It's very hard for us to win that industry. So you have to see how you behave, how you talk to them. I was in one time in Middle East. So my agent who was there, our local representative, the first thing he told me, if you go to a sheikh house, there are certain meetings you have to do in a very confidential way. Please do not appreciate anything. I said, what do you mean? Normally you go to anybody's house, it's a nice painting, you will say, oh, beautiful, very awesome painting. He said the culture is he has to give it to you. So, and he may not like to give it, so it's a very embarrassing situation for you. Second thing, don't refuse any drink if he offers to, even if you drink. So one day these guys, this was a horrible experience of me. This something made kind of tea made from the camel milk, which is very, very hard to drink, So but what I did, I just put it like this, pretend to drink it, but I couldn't. It's so thick, it becomes like a curd, the milk of camel. But in their culture, you cannot offend. So that is something. In Thai culture, for example, you are not supposed to argue to your senior. It's their culture. So if the senior person is sitting, the middle manager knows he's talking nonsense, but still they will listen. So these are certain culture dimensions which there. So don't argue with them. Just slowly put your point. With Japanese, please be careful. You put your point and then keep silent. It takes time for them to analyze it. I give you one, I was in Osaka in a meeting. I can teach you this thing in 2 minutes and you will understand for your life. I don't know how many electrical people, there was a current transformer, CT is there, the ratio, which you can define in few minutes. So they were asking, though my chief engineer was with me, so I said, he was a Thai, so he couldn't, speak. So I said, okay, this you can take these parameters, this should be probably, but I'm not a designer, but anyway, it should be, this is a very simple thing. Can you understand and imagine if you don't interact with this, you will be really crazy. It took them until 5 o'clock, and this is a typical in Japanese, ho ho, something like that. They keep on doing ho ho, and I was sitting, they took me for lunch, everything, and 5 o'clock they say, oh no, Mr. Srawat, you are right. So you have to be patient. If I would have argued and something, probably you would have lost it. So this is something you come across, you try to learn, you teach them. In senior management, there are sometimes trainings on cross-culture. But thanks for your question, it's very, very important. You need to know the sensitivities. In Thailand, you can never raise your, don't touch the head of anyone. Don't show your toes to anyone. They feel offended. So when you go in a meeting, certain protocols are there you need to follow. You need to understand how, how these people talk sometimes discount Japanese, but this comes through experience, right? And that is where I say, when the people come, see, ask a right question. You will be, they will say in the negotiation was going on, there were 3 parties sitting, and the one Japanese said, oh, my train is 7 o'clock. So everybody think, oh, he's to go, sir. The meal was 7% discount, give it and you will get the deal. So these are certain things they will go in a very subtle way, how they interact, how they manage. And then I asked that guy, Mr. Moriyama, his name, San Moriyama. I said, I don't think that you are still here, your train was at 7 o'clock. He said, the train is gone, project is gone now. So it was 7 o'clock means, I asked them to give 7% discount because I got a message. So these are the certain things. Southeast Asian region normally they don't argue that. They will take it, there is a cultural dimension to it. You go to a shop, you can overcharge to, you are a shopkeeper, you can overcharge to a customer, but next time he will not come to you. But he will not argue. So that is how this market operates. Any more question, please?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Aradhya Kushwaha, PGPM.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions for you.
Please.
So I believe that ERG Company Limited deals in oil and energy sector, which is very dynamic in its nature. So I want to know how does its consultancy practices change after and before a major event. Like the situation in Iraq is very unstable right now, which is supposed to affect the oil sector. So how does the practices change? And so my second question is that you were associated with Siemens for a long time before joining ERG Group, and at one side Siemens, which is a very diversified company, and at other side this company which particularly focuses its resources into a much specified sector. So sir, I want to know what are the difficulties that one faces in such a transition. So that these are my questions.
Just to correct you, it's not an oil and gas consulting firm, right? We generally deal with the strategy and the business development of the companies which want to come to ASEAN or ASEAN company which want to go global. Okay, that's the primary activity of this company. And as I told you, since last month I will be heading a water technology company, which is a complete different sector. So we need more on the strategy on this side. Siemens is a big behemoth, you know. And you will be, it's very hard for me to understand. This company is going under transition and restructuring for the last 7 years. Until today they do not complete. 2 CEOs has been kicked out, but the transition going on in Siemens system. Because we have diversified business. They created their divisions, then they created the sectors. Out of the sectors they are coming back to the divisions. So this leads me to other than, so transition is simply, you know, these are certain skills. Let me point out to you. There are actually 3 skills in anybody's career. When you start your career, you need technical skills because you are dealing with the functional competencies. So when you start as a junior manager or something, people will ask you, make a report or analyze something. These skills are important. When you go to middle management, then the people skills are important. You are not doing the job by yourself, but you are doing the job through your colleagues, through your subordinates. So people skills are very important. When you move to the higher management, then the strategic skills are important. So it doesn't matter which sector across, because domain knowledge you can acquire very fast. But you should know where the company has to go down the line. Where is my bottom line? Where is my top line? How I motivate my people? What is going to be the future of this company? How I satisfy my stakeholders? So it's not only shareholder, please mind it. The CEO who takes care of only of the shareholder, I can assure you 200% that company is going to die out. In this world, you can't simply do that. So these are the things. So when you move from one, now my domain is more concentrated on consulting. My domain in Siemens was that I have to find a strategy where down the 3 lines, what is my market share? That was single prerogative at that point of time. We have to increase our market share. We have to be market leader. So how do we strategize? How do we take, there were 6 divisions in my sector, energy sector. So how to bring them on board? Because there are conflicting demands by them as their divisions state. Somebody need market share, somebody need their bottom line, that I have to have more profitability. So all these things come into picture. But once you have that, horizon, you can adjust. Okay? This is. Please.
Sir, let me put up a question. I'm Piyush from PGPM. So you have worked in NTPC and Power Grid. So does that core technical experience does help you in the later stages while you are working in the administrative function? I mean, I'll just point out the reference why I'm talking about this.
Please.
I was working with Reliance, and when I was leaving, I have a 3-year working experience. So while I was leaving, my seniors told me, don't leave, because once you move into administrative, you won't be able to use your technical skills at all. You will lose it. So they said that you will lose your 3-year experience.
Okay. Guys, do you know there is a law of diminishing return in economics? You will be reading some of I think there must be a core course for you, managerial economics. Okay? So there are 2 laws in the world which never fails. The law of demand and supply and law of diminishing return. And there is 3rd law which I call is law of incompetence. The more you become incompetent, more you rise in the organization. When they think you are not any longer fit to do the job, then they move you to next level. Okay. Technical, as I explained before, the 3 skills are important at different point of time. So when you start your career, these technical skills you use. Okay? When you move to the next level, you slightly keep on moving away. And one of the fallacy of these problems is, if you're too much deep in technical and you do not want to come out, then I learned many things in NTPC. By the way, let me tell you, I don't know now because it becomes too big. It was a great organization to produce leaders. It was really the best organization in India, and they were given award by the World Bank for 3 years consecutively, the best project management company. It was a, I would say, awesome organization at that point of time. And I shouldn't say or share with you, when I was going for my MBA, I was given a French government scholarship. So I approached, and I was in a very unique position because we opened an international business development division, and we were only 4 people in that. So my reporting was to my director directly, which is not the normal case. So I went to him and I showed him that this is the, me and my boss boy, by the way, both applied for the same scholarship. And we are both from IIT Roorkee. 7 years senior to me, so that section was very much complete. So anyway, I wrote his recommendation, my recommendation together. He signed. He didn't get, I got it. Even I asked when I went to AIT, the professor, I said, why did you select me, not my boss? They said 2 things went in your favor. Your case was, because normally the full scholarship caused the debate very strongly. He said 2 things went in your favor. Was you were younger, okay, and I had masters already. I did bachelor masters from both from Roorkee. So he said these 2 things went in your favor. He said if we have to spend money and educate the people, better we educate a younger one who will use it for a long time. So this was the reason. So those organizations, they were great. So he said, I don't want to miss you, but at the same time, I don't want to put a spoke in your career also. Because it's a unique, this was only 1 scholarship by the way for India. So I don't say I'm so great, but I was lucky to get it. So then he said, okay, I will. And he wrote on my, which I got a note sheet later, is still copied and in my record. We have galaxy of officers in this organization. He's one of our stars. But to nourish that star, I have to grant him leave. So my leave was sanctioned. 7th September I left. I was asked to go for an Exim Bank meeting on Bombay on 5th. 6th I called my brother-in-law and somebody, please pack up the things and take it. I'm going to leave tomorrow. This was the state of commitment at that time. But tremendous people. So there was really an organization which helped me a lot. When I was in Germany, I was one of the few probably which they really bid a farewell. And I was not in that senior hierarchy. I mean, that time I just joined. And they told me, see, this is where the Indian beauty lies. They said, how you people can work across functions so much. We talk to you, you can talk on civil engineering, you can talk on electrical engineering. You know much more commercial than our commercial officers. And then I told them, look, our education is all round, number 1. In my engineering, I was taught all. I was taught Indian constitution, I was taught history, I was taught language, psychology, everything was there. Then we come to an organization where we have cross-functional possibilities. You work in contact, that was the organization NTPC. You can work in contracts, you can work in engineering in your initial career, then you can work in project management or everything, with procurement. So this gives you all round. So when you grow, that all round knowledge helps you a lot. But please forget, when you become a general manager, you are general manager. Some of the people which carry this notion, oh, I was the chief designer, I was this, they never come out of that, cocoon, and they are never successful as a business leader. So you must forget which discipline you are coming. The moment you become a general manager, you are general manager. Your job is to steer the company, your job is to motivate your people, your job is to look for the future. Ravi Uppal, he was heading Volvo in Sweden, and then he suddenly came back to ABB, and then he went to L&T. So you don't need those skills. These skills are very important in the initial phase of your career. Moreover, this helps you on your analytical mind. When you have done that job, then immediately various options your people present, then you can look at it which are the best for the organization. So that is where it helps you. Okay?
Sir,
what's your name? The another, are you here or somewhere? Okay, please, you can ask some question.
Sir, I wanted to ask that I'm Raju, a PGP HR.
Okay.
So you said that you have worked across countries, you have gone through Germany and all these areas. So sir, how do you feel that it is different from what you have done in engineering from IIT? So how it is different from the how the transition is from engineering to an MBA? Means what are the different skills that you have learned through it and how you are using it in your career ahead?
Okay, good question. See, the transition is for everyone. It's not only for me. Unique. Any organization, unless you stay in a functional silos. There was a big debate, let me tell you, in Siemens, how to motivate the people who are functional specialists. You see, you become a general manager, the career is different. Those people, they are valuable people in the organization and they don't want to move anywhere. They love their function, they love their field, so they want to grow it. So finally we come out, we even designed a career that, for example, project management. The guy doesn't want to move. It's a very, let me tell you, very unique thing. I used to ask my German colleague, hey, I get my salary, I love my job, I'm happy. I don't care what others are getting. So there are many people, and it was a shocking for me. I said, this guy doesn't bother, he doesn't want to be department head or division head or something. No. So there was then they come out with a career plan. It's a good question from HR perspective. That they functional career were there. For example, project director of a project. There's a very defined process in Siemens. So he is equivalent almost to a division head. His salary, his perks, everything is in that. And he may be handling a project of say 500 million euro or 700 million euro. So many of the divisions do not have that revenue, the whole division itself. So that is how they come out with this. Those people who want to stay focused in their functional career, let them be there, but then you have to motivate them and grow them in this way. So this was the solution we defined. Okay? Yeah. So, but it's important that at the end of the day, see, you have to forget that. It's a part of life because your job demands something else. As I told, water sector is not my sector. So I just came back to here, Friday morning I flew yesterday here and then Thursday evening I came from Hong Kong. So we had a strategy meeting for Southeast Asia. And they were talking sir, we do this. I said, this is none of my business, right? This is your job, you do whichever technology you want to do. I really want to know, see, these are the questions you need to ask. Does this technology support in our gaining market share? Is the really customer interested on the technical know-how or the technology age, what we call it? If they are interested in the same technology which other competitor can provide, then it doesn't make any sense to me. We can develop whatever it is. So that is very unique. So I need not to know the typical details of that technology at that level, but I need to know what my market need, what my business need. And it took me only 2-3 months to get that knowledge. That's it. So that's how we manage. Okay, because in academics also, when professor become professor, as I told you, from a hunch or from anybody, if I ask you who's Amartya Sen, what will be your answer? He is a professor of economics. Great discovery. I was asking economics, he was telling me philosophy. So this is how that these professors, start going from one field to another. They start writing across the field. And that is where it has to evolve. Mostly you will find John Maynard Keynes, great economist, but he became a philosopher later. And many universities are now thinking to club these two departments, economics and philosophy, history in together. So there was another Nobel laureate, he came to Bangkok, I forget his name, and it was a very nice debate I had in the presentation with him. He said, eventually, the society should develop the leaders. Through the democratic process, the leader will eventually emerge. And then my argument was that looking at the Asian experience, in Europe it took them 300 years to mature that society. I said, look, my own country, theoretically your model is correct, but where we bloody put a leader, national leader, who has no qualification, who doesn't know how to talk, who doesn't know, but because he comes from a so-called family, so you put him for the potential prime minister of the country. So how this model shoots to the Asian perspective, that was my discussion with him. In Thailand also that Yingluck was, She was the sister of the exiled Prime Minister. So she became your great Rahul Gandhi. Everybody is talking, you know, he's going to be your Prime Minister. We will not put him even our assistant. So this model doesn't work here. There are reasons because we are still in hierarchical society. Still there is a lot of feudalism in this region. So different models, different. And this is a lesson to learn from there. In your business, please, never ape the model as it is. Most of the models, theories, especially in management, are developed in US. And we all copy and add their theory. Do it, there's no harm in that. But do it with the context. And that's a challenge for the managers, how to implement those frameworks in our context. That is necessary. If you lose that context, then gone. Very good. Yes.
Hello sir, my name is Akshay. I'm from PGPM Labs.
Okay.
So, like we heard, like you have worked in myriad domains, like business development, sales, marketing, consulting, general management. So, like, how did you take up the challenge moving from one domain to another? And like, if I may ask, like, you know, which did you like the most working in?
Which I like the most?
Yeah.
That's a difficult question. Other is comparatively easier. You see, I love to do the different things. And it's, I think, in my genetic code. When I was a student, you know, when I left university, I was member of almost 20 committees, different things. So it's just something I love to do different things. I mean, I had a lot of pressing engagement, but as I told you, I mean, so wonderful to interact with you people, you know, it brings me to the whole days. So still I love to do that. One of the conditions when I negotiate my contract, I will be allowed complete academic freedom. If I have to deliver a lecture, if I have to go for teaching assignment, nobody will stop me. Of course, I adjust my time, you know, they have to adjust their schedule also. It's not that the company should suffer, but I should have complete freedom. This is the only point I negotiate. I generally do not negotiate my salary. It comes and it comes and it's okay. So it is, it depends, again I told you, as your passion. Suppose it never interests me. When I joined NTPC, one of the executive director, he was my alumni, my senior, and he said, which you want to go? I never want to go to plant business, O&M. A job which is for 8 hours and you know, like monotonous, I just can't do it. So from those times I made it clear, no, I want to do something else, there's something new every day. And they said, okay, then you go to transmission, you can roam around the whole India. And I love traveling. I mean, not now anymore, but it used to be the case before. So I said, okay, that's fine with me. I love to meet the different people, to negotiate different kind of thing, to do the business development. That is my area, if you say, so-called, you know, better preference, I would say. So it's just nature, 2-3 years, more than that I cannot do the same job. And this was one of the reasons, because as I told you, Siemens was going restructuring process. So they asked me to relocate to a country which I didn't want, number one. Second, they said, oh, we will find something. I said, if you do not find a new challenge for me, then I'll take my call. So believe me, at one point of time, you should be ready to take your own call, if you have passion with that. So the guy, New German, came and I told him, look, this is the case. I said, people come to me and they say somehow I should protect my job in this. I said, no. If you are capable enough, there are enough jobs for you. And it's not necessary that you keep on doing the same thing. There are plenty of things to do in your life. Plenty of things, believe me. If you come out that fear psychosis, what will happen to me if I'm tomorrow on the, you know, nowhere without doing. Believe me, if you are sincere, if you know the things, there's no doubt of it. You can do anything. So I told to my wife, I'm going to leave. She said, very good, well done. Enjoy. I said, what should I do? I said, forget it. 6 months, just enjoy your time. Think later on. She is even more relaxed than me. She never take any stress. So this is how it happens. So, but the only thing underlying principle is your passion. What you want to do. Any damn thing you can be a good entrepreneur, you can be anything, but your passion should lie with that. So to answer your question, I don't like to do the things more than 2-3 days. The only change which I told to the people and I do not affect is my life partner. That's the only constant. So, please.
So, Pulkit Jain, PGPM.
Yeah, please.
So, because you are the CEO of a water technology company,
yeah,
I want to ask, what are your views on renewable resources, and there's this buzzword called sustainable development.
Yeah.
And do you think this field, this buzzword, this is something which actually has a future? Because it's been 10 to 15 years since this concept has been floating around.
Can I leave your question for my second part? This is more related with that. Okay. I will answer that, okay? Sure. Otherwise, I have to do it 2 times.
Sure.
But that's very relevant. We'll come to it. Yes, please. The last question, then we move to the next one.
I am Rishabh Kumar, PGPM 178.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask a question that is it preferable to approach a variety of things, or it is better to grasp command over one of the field?
It depends what's your passion. Some people really like to dig deep in one subject. It's fine, there's nothing wrong. They are called very focused people, right? In one particular topic, absolutely no harm or nothing wrong with that. And these are typical R&D people, you know, all these research clinicians, which really they want to go to the bottom of the thing and create something very new. It's absolutely fantastic. But then again, it depends on your attitude. Some people like to, you know, try different things, move different things. So it's just your passion, basically. Both are okay. Okay? So should we move to the something very fascinating things which I would like to share with you. This is what all about I told to them, Dr. Kapil, what they are supposed to get from you and from this wonderful place. Okay? So they will make a lot of trouble for you. You have heard another buzzword, what the people generally call nowadays mega trend. Have you heard anybody? Oh, most of you people should have heard. Mega trends. Anybody any idea on mega trends? Please.
Ayush here, PGP course. So what I know about mega trends is that these are the trends which take a longer time to come into the team, say a big technological change or something like that. But they are here to stay for a longer time. Like if you talk about trends are there, but for shorter duration. The mega trends exist for say decades or some periods after they come into the picture.
Okay. Anyone else? The gentleman.
Any trend that is bound to disrupt the industry, like say cloud computing. It is the next big thing in IT, but then it is here to stay for decades. It has been in pictures in cities, and it is in vogue even today. So that is something that I call a mega trend.
But that is called creative disruption. Okay? Anyway, the mega trend, basically in a very simple sense to define it, these are the events, the trends in a period of time in history which has a significant bearing on the society, on the economy, on the geographies. Okay? This is a very simple definition I am telling you, that they substantially change your life. They substantially change your economies. These are the mega trends, right? And it's a buzzword, it's a, let's say, the whole business success of the companies would lie how you capture those mega trends. Okay? Some of the trends I would like to touch upon. The biggest mega trend which you will see nowadays is urbanization. And that is where your question comes of sustainability. According to UN research report, by 2030, 60% of the world population will be living in urban areas. How do you manage that? Think as managers, right? What could be the problems, what could be the opportunities of this urbanization? This is the mega trend, and then we go from macro to micro, and micro is the industry. How you capture those trends? What will happen? The urbanization take place. What is going to happen? You need different kind of transport infrastructure. You need different kind of dwelling units. You need different kind of hospitalities. You need different kind of hospitals. You need different kind of housing structures. energy requirements, transportations, all these is going to change the way the people live. Have you ever imagined before that the people will be living in shared accommodation? You live morning 8 to 8, I live 8 to 8 next. People are going, there's a big business coming out of this urbanization, it's the sharing car. You cannot keep on congesting the roads. If you go to Tokyo, you will find 5 layers of transport. The expressway is in 5 layers. Okay, because they don't have space. The population is coming to Tokyo, so they made one expressway, on top of that second, then third, and the fourth, and until fifth they reached. I don't know whether they will make sixth or seventh or not. So these are the trends. So what is the implication for the companies? Those companies which are forward-looking. I give you an example of Siemens. Siemens created a company, a sector out of the whole Siemens, which is called infrastructure in cities, to capture these trends. These business development guy goes to the mayors of the mega cities, try to co-create the projects, solve their problems. If the Singapore is saying we have a big congestion problem, what solution can we have? That is where you realize the business opportunities out of these trends. The aging population, they will be living in the urban cities, how you cater them? There is a whole industry for nursing, there is a whole industry for hospitals. Do you need the hospitals where the patient goes or the doctors go to the patient? What kind of model we have to do? So that is where this comes. Are these all businesses sustainable? Are these societies are sustainable? You keep on creating pollution. Number one, you create pollution in generating power. Huge coal-fired plants, yes, you can keep on. But look at the generation. I mean, I was amazed. Talking to Dr. Kapil, last year, same June I was here, I didn't feel this much heat. This year is terrible heat. Why? Because pollution is going up. You go out 100 kilometers from Delhi, maybe you feel 2 degrees Celsius temperatures already. Too many vehicles here. Are these going to be sustainable? I was reading one report from the Ministry of Urban Transport here. They say by the end of this decade, the average speed in Delhi, if you don't do anything, will be 5 kilometers per hour. That will be the speed here. Are these sustainable? So with the mankind, with the cities, with the country, there is always a question of sustainability. So one of the solutions found in Singapore, they tax heavy traffic in the peak hours. So if you want to use that slot, you have to pay more. And it's automatic there. When you enter in that zone, it will detect automatically. Secondly, they don't issue licenses, but because it's a small city country, they can regulate it. Then third one is they ask now for the sharing. So before, if you preempt these trends, the sharing could be a sustainable future that you plan it. Otherwise, by force you have to do it. There's a company in US called Zipcar. They are renting the car as you use, you pay it. $840 million in revenue. So these are the opportunity I have to see out of these mega trends, right? Urbanization. IBM created the company has completely changed because of these trends. It was a product company, they become a solution company. This cloud computing, all kind of, now they are making a huge database that the behavior of the consumers will have a significant. I tell you a very good story. How one of your great professor was hired. Professor Deepak Jain, the good friend of mine, he told me, I said, what is your background? You were sitting, I invited him. By the way, I was the president of IIT Alumni Association in Thailand. So I invited him for a dinner talk. And he told me he did his master's and PhD in mathematics. And he's one of the top professor of marketing. So, any usual question, I said, how could it be? I mean, my question was the same. He said, it's a unique story, that's why I became a professor of marketing. Professor Kotler was supposed to deliver a seminar lecture. His relative got heart attack, he died. So he has to cancel that engagement. It was a paid conference. So 1,000 people, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 for 1 hour they were paying, and they have to cancel a large gathering. So that organizer said, Professor Kotler, can you help us do something? He said, anyway, I don't know, but you can ask Professor Deepak Jain, I will tell him that he will deliver the lecture. So when his biodata was read, this was this, and then everybody said, what this guy is doing here? So then he introduced himself. You see, you know Professor Kotler, then everybody said, yeah, I'm the boss of Kotler. Because by the time he became Dean of Kellogg, and just after Professor Kotler, before he was the Dean, and then he started giving lecture. He said when he was first interviewed, there was a vacancy for marketing. He was from Assam, he did his master's from Assam, and then he was offered a genuine scholarship or generous scholarship by a professor. He was come from a very humble background. So in the interview they asked how you will relate your mathematics with marketing. And you know what was his answer? He said, this is the future of marketing. How do you drive this opportunity? And that is where your management is going to come. He said, you will analyze all the data by statistical mathematical tools what the consumer choice is. And the modeling of consumer choice is all about mathematics, nothing else. So that is where he correlated his mathematics ability and he was hired immediately. And the net result is you have one of the leading marketing professor who was a mathematician. So that is how you relate, how you create, how you conceptualize the things. So these are mega trends. Company has tremendous opportunity. If they don't do it, then they will lose it. Google, Amazon. Amazon is a company, just start with marketing on the website, start selling e-commerce, a large company, and they are now coming in the mobile market. Because that is the trend. Did you ever imagine 10 years ago, I will not be using this, kind of laptop or any mobile. Everybody, Professor Deepak then said, you see now the research is the flapping the mobile, then you have one more flap and that's the mobile should work. Nobody think of touchpad. There are only two things you can do in the world. Either you understand the customer demand, business, you create. Or you create a product which customer never thought of and that generates the demand. That's what Apple did. We in Siemens, we made a turbine which is giving a 62% efficiency. When I was a student, my professor was telling, if somebody can achieve 40%, that will be a like Einstein kind of breakthrough. Look, now 62%. When I was a student in third year, I only read the theoretical model of MATLAB that there will be electrical train which will live on the magnetic levitation. In China, you have the running example which is running. And I used to joke my German friend, look, we Asians are much more rich than you. You cannot afford bloody MATLAB, we can install it. Of course, China doesn't matter. So these are the trends you have to capture. So urbanization is a big thing which will change the life we live, which will change the life we connect each other, which will change the life how we use the natural resources. So sustainability will always be a very significant factor in all your business decisions. If you cannot create an environment-friendly, sustainable product, you are not going to survive in this industry. Believe me, this will be a societal impact on all the CEOs to run their company in a sustainable way. That is where your question comes. Oh, I'm taking too much time. E-mobility. You see, there's a new kind of mobility. Did you ever imagine you will have a car without driver? We no professor in my life taught me that you can transmit electricity without any medium, without wire. Now we're talking wireless charging stations. By 2020, there will be 25 million electric cars in the world. People are coming with different. Honda is coming with a hydrogen car. Toyota is developing different electrical car. Nissan is developing different electrical cars. So you will see the complete landscape of the mobility will change. So you will not be producing car, but you will be producing the solutions for the mobility of the people. People will maybe start living in this condominium and the office will be joined together. So you need a car for a weekend. So why do I invest in a car which I need only for weekend? So there will be car available on service. You just give a call or through your internet, you book the car, it will be delivered to your house and then you can use it for a day and then return to back. So there will be new business model. The total mobility landscape, believe me, it will be the one of the biggest trend is going to change. You will know more what you think, what the company or your sales guys or strategy guys thinking will be. There will be a complete different future. The next trend which is coming up is smart is green. You will have a smart house, a smart car, smart offices, everything. I was in a hotel and I was amazed. First I thought there's something wrong. I went to the toilet, come back a few times, click, 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 click. Oh my God, there's something lighting. I was about to call the guy that there's something wrong with the lighting in the room. But then I just moved back, went again, look. Then I moved back, oh, okay. Then I realized it's automatic, because somehow my technical background, technical sense, I use technical skills too. So that then the toilet seat, I was in Japan, you have to sit, nothing else you have to do. The room was so small, but everything was automated. You move your hand, the things work. So these are the things which is going to change your way. Smart will be green. Because the people are talking now net zero concept. The cities will be energy neutral, zero energy consumption. That is how they are going to plan. They are thinking. One of the biggest development you will see in India is in the DMIC corridor. There will be 24 cities completely green will be developed on that. And luckily we have Modi as a Prime Minister. He will push this project very fast. Gujarat, a lot of work has been done already in that. So you will see some of the best technology in the world in that. Then another trend is geo-socialization. Now I think none of the students, if I see, it will be very hard to imagine that any of you is not a member of Facebook, Twitter or something. What is the impact of this trend? It's not simply you exchange information, that's fine, that you can do otherwise, so texting. The impact is the geography, the boundaries has slashed. You are talking to a friend, you are talking a trend which is happening in the States or which is happening in some island somewhere, because you all are connected. And these geo-socialization will take an impact that you will have sometimes universal product. Sometimes you will have such a differentiated product that the product comes with 2,000 features. Maybe this region use only 1,000, this region is another 500, this and then another 500. So this whole product concept will change. The world will be so interconnected, there will be, I don't see any, one of the issue I see maybe in sometimes with the bio identity, this whole research will be finished. You are just passing through a scanner and he will know everything about you. So nothing to do, no visa, nothing. These are, imagine, any weird thing can happen and that will define your life. You will have friends across the world which you never met, right? But still you know each and everything about them. Their habits, their food habits, their living habits, what they want to do, what kind of life they want to lead. So these things with geo-socialization, with these social media settings will change. The only thing which afraid me is your privacy. Nothing will remain private as such. The intrusion will be so high, it will be very hard to defend anything. You are going to some restaurant and you will never know that you just switch on your phone and your boss knows sitting 200 meters down the line there what this guy is doing. You say, oh sir, I was very busy making that. Oh, yes, I know you were in that cafe, don't worry. So the intrusion will be too high. Then connectivity, convergence we talk. Another very big industry which I see and the trend is coming is the happiness, wealthness, and right? One of the country or Prime Minister recently visited and they said, look, this is where you get these keynote. The Bhutan Deputy Prime Minister was in AIT and he was talking, oh, we do not compete with the world in GDP, but we compete in gross happiness product. That is where this first time I heard this terminology. What is gross happiness? One of my buddy playing tennis was a guy from Bhutan, very, very, very jolly guy. So, and then he said, in Bhutan, people are generally, they're poor people, but they're very happy. The contentment is very high, and now they are changing to the different reality. So these are different kind of thinking, different kind of measures will be developed in the world. and it all connectively depend. I mean, look, could you ever imagine a plane, you know, which we were talking that he take a direct flight from New York and coming to Hong Kong, the longest flight, 18, 19, 20 hours. We never enabled this kind of connectivity. People have now video conference. I need not to travel even sometime. You can just have video conference and talk to them, right? Some of the tools are even free of charge. You don't pay in that. So the way interaction is taking place, this will change the complete landscape. And the people have, the companies has to find opportunity. And that is your role, as I told you, that's what you can learn in this institution. Create these mock projects. Think beyond something, you know, oh, we will have a, you know, company where the bloody headquarters could be in the moon, you know, how they will connect to the satellite. Think, you know, just completely weird idea. But you will never know what opportunity lies. You will only know these experiences when you are post-MBA. When you will go to the field, you will think, oh my God, this was the concept. So this is something, I'll give you another next thing. People will convert another is the, you know, the transportation and the reality I was talking. Did you ever heard a project by China government? They wanted to connect China to Europe, passing 10 countries. Total outlay was $760 billion. China gave warranty, we will finish this project in 5 years. Nobody has to pay anything. You just pay back in the natural resources. Uzbekistan, you give me gas, something you give me this in terms of commodity. So that country is energy hungry at the moment. And this was the dimension. The trains are tested in the yard 360 miles an hour. Tell me, would you prefer to go to Bombay, take a flight, bloody go from your house, go to the airport, check in, security, this and that, 2 hours you spend. If a train can take you to Bombay, which is a distance of about 1300 kilometers, in let's say 3 hours, which one you will prefer? So we were moving 20 years ago from train to planes, now we are moving back plane to trains. There was first time I went, I was going to Berlin for a meeting, so my secretary booked the ticket, I went, morning, going this ritual, 6 o'clock flight, I had to leave 4:30 from my. Then I said, how much time it takes by IC, this the latest train in Germany. So it will take about 4 hours, so 3.5. I said, never book my ticket by. As long as I travel in Germany, I'll go by train. From my house, my apartment, the train station was 5 minutes. If I walk 7 minutes. Okay? I can go sit down, I can do my work. Luxury train, absolutely fantastic experience, nice food. So why the hell I should? So I start 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock I am in Berlin in my office, I am pretty happy. So the trend will change. When you have these ultra high speed trains, things will completely change. And for a mass country like this, I mean this country, how many people you have? Another estimation is in the world, almost 800, in the two countries, 890 people will be between the age of 15 to 58 or 56 years, in that bracket. So these guys would not like to go these hassles, you know, they would like mass connectivity, mass transition support, that is what you are looking for. So and then what is the implication from macro to micro? The companies which are engaged in the rail systems, signaling system, software system, they will have tremendous opportunities. So there where we have to capture the macro to micro trends. Another horizon which is, of course, space jam, cyber warfare, it is for the IT industry to tackle and the defense people, but that is another area which is going to bring you tremendous opportunities. Robotics. People believe in 10 to 15 years, there is a prediction by Honda that you will be self-servant. You know, they call it self-servant. You will be sitting on your bed, and everything robot will be doing, making you morning coffee, bringing you, waking you up, everything. Imagine that scenario. We used to think that robots can be used only for welding and the self-automated factories, you know, robots are doing everything. That is going to be the future. Look how the business opportunity can translate. Cyber warfare, probably down the line in 20 years you will not have any soldier in your army. Everybody is sitting in a nice console and in computer, launching missiles and going and everything. So cyber warfare, they can jam your complete servers and everything. This is the new threat. This is new opportunity also. Some of the companies making huge money still in today. They are in niche markets, so you have to find your niche. And the last but not the least, my own field, that is energy. There was one guy was fired from your great corporation, Birla Corporation. The only mistake he did, he made the forward contract for the oil purchase because everybody was talking it's going to be $200 per barrel. So when the oil was 140 or 145, he has it for coming next 1 year supply. The market crashed. So that guy, of course, he informed, but he said, you are the culprit, so he was fired. So nobody thought really, because this crisis, geopolitical tensions, these things, oil producing countries. See, one thing one must understand in this world, there is no free lunch, number one. Secondly, every country works for their own strategic interest and political interest. So biggest interest, look what is US is doing to Iraq now. They will only do lip service, maybe little bit help, little bit there, because they are self-sufficient in oil now. One guy was arguing me 2 days back, but sir, they were self-sufficient before. Yes, you are right. I never said that. At what price? If I can buy oil from Saudi at $70 and it take me $200 or $150 to take my oil, so which would you prefer? That was the problem. The oil is there for almost maybe 500 years, but the question is at what price, at what cost? So technology was not available. Now we have tremendous shale gas with the horizontal fracking now. So you can capture that gas at an economical rate. US is producing gas at $3.4 per MMBTU. In Asia whole region, the gas is between $12 to $14 mm per BTU. China is able to produce only at 11.4. That is why US become the king again. They have so much gas available. The next biggest king is coming is New Zealand. A sleeping country where people say the more sheep are there than the men or than the people living over there. That will be tremendous economic center. Huge amount of gas. The already company started, building the rigs and the oil wells. This is the second biggest center of shale gas. So if these kind of trends, the technology is available. In one of my report I give the sustainability, I recommended to my headquarters in Thailand, wind energy is not viable. Because we have the wind speed between 6 to 8 meter per second. And that time technology was available. If your wind is 10 and above, then you can exploit that. Now you have wind turbines which can exploit at 4 meter per second even. Complete landscape change within 3 years and we get the biggest contract of about 200 million euro. So that is how the technology can change, the trend can change. So the shale gas is the latest trend which is going to change the oil and gas industry completely by. So there will be no more, now OPEC is looking for a more democratic process rather than the cartel. Because they know their days are numbered anyway. So the biggest center, New Zealand, China, US, Russia, even India could be if we know these reserves. So these are going to be the new growth centers. The shale gas, new technology, new fracking, maybe it can be even more cheaper. And the moment they have the logistic facilities available to transport this gas from US to this region, the gas price will go down here like anything. And those countries economically, China made a big, I think $400 billion deal just with Russia. But believe me, if they can, get the shale gas by themselves, who's going to honor that deal? So these are the something mega trends will change this complete scenario in oil and gas sector. It's a very, very critical sector at the moment. Believe me, in coming 3 to 4 years, you will find tremendous change in this sector. So these are the mega trends. Look at it, think it. You have time now to thinking process. You have a group thinking available too. You have nice professors who can, guide you, steer you. And this is the time, amazing opportunity. Believe me, my friends, use it as much as you can. This is a unique opportunity. Like people say, you get married once and that's your lifetime opportunity. But here you have many opportunities. So this is what I would say from my side. If any question, please feel free to ask. You have another 2 minutes. I overshoot my time. Normally I don't do that. Please.
Aditya from PGPM.
Yeah.
The mega trends you talked about, the environment of technology and like robotics for one example.
Yeah.
In a country like India, are we prepared to like displace many workers like who like a chunk of population is unskilled? So will it be safe for countries like India to adopt these new robotic techniques or like do we need more time with this?
It's a good question, but it relates to the policy issues. See, every country is in a different stage of development. I give you another example. There was a big debate when US started outsourcing. The Maquiladora, the first factory is established in Mexico. There was a big backlash there that they are going to take our jobs, but this is not the case. I fought almost 10 years in Siemens. My view was, you just cannot do this, what you are doing, with your cost anymore. So you have to migrate these industries. It took them few years to create regional competence centers. Even the R&D is now sourced. India is one of the countries where Siemens put R&D, and in China. Okay? Depending on your stage of development, depending on your cost structure, depending on your income level in the society, you will choose the industries which are suitable for you. So there is nothing, no universal law. The universal law, as I tell you, is the demand and supply and law of diminishing utility. So those countries has different role to play. The still R&D you cannot outsource everywhere. You know, the basic research, 78% of the basic research, by the way, in the world is being still done in US. So they will have to play that role. I told to my guy in Germany, please innovate new designs, innovate new products. That's your role to play. The routine engineering, routine things, you delegate, you just outsource there. The cost structure will not allow you to do this, right? In one of my seminar, some people asked me, what should be our strategy to compete with China? And this is one question I pose you before we end the session. So please, any answer, what should be the strategy to counter China? Please.
Ramsha here.
Yeah.
Going with innovation can be one of our vision.
Okay.
Pretty new.
The last two.
So my name is Shudhriti Sarkar, PGPM batch. Sir, I think developing relations, very good relations with the Southeast Asian countries. Like China is thinking of, always thinking of developing a relation with all the port countries, so that transportation is easier, and they have this inkling that it surrounds India.
That's a diplomacy question, but my question was related with business. But that's very good, very good point actually. Yeah.
Right. Views from PGPM. We should first try to retain our talent over in India. Most of us, like from the elite institutes, move to US for research. As you said, 78% of the research is done in US, but most of the chunk is from India.
Okay.
IITs, IICs, and
Thank you. This is one of the topics. Sorry, I forgot to mention to you. You reminded me. Thank you. There's another global trend, is a reverse plane trend. Believe me, this trend, which was even difficult to imagine in the last 20 years, now most of the students, if you go to any business school, ask them what is your preferred reason for the internship, summer internship or research, 90% of them are willing to come these countries. The people invest, want to do job in this country now, in Asia Pacific region, Latin countries. So there is a reverse plane trend. So that this is another trend which is changing. Thank you. I just missed this point, right? So see, the best strategy for a company to counter China is the only strategy at the moment is you have to innovate. That's the only. Thank you very much. Not many people could answer that question. So you are really brilliant. So this is the only strategy lies with the company. On cost, you cannot compete with them. They are very hardworking, very disciplined people. So simply no way. The differential, I can tell you, 25 to 30% in terms of the cost. So only thing you can dominate them, that if they are at this level, you have to come to the next level. So before they catch up to you, you have to go to the next level. That's the only sustainable strategy to counter China. Otherwise, you just forget in terms of cost or any other thing. Logistic, they are much cost effective. Okay? And they are more nationalistic people. there's a difference between India and them. When it comes to the core thing, they are very hard. Like as I told you, 4 times they will listen to the same lecture and then they will compete with you and they will come out with the solutions. Okay? So with this, thank you very much for bearing me for so long time, and I hope you might have enjoyed this session. Please make best of you. It's an amazing opportunity for you, for all of young brain, young mind, very hard working, and you have the energy and the potential to do the things. And you are in the, I would say, one of the most established and prominent institution in the country, or I would say in the world. And you have the excellent faculty. Use your time, interact with them, and attend, like you were asking me, please maintain this habit. Attend all your presentations, be on the front row, ask any question that you can ask, and you will succeed. I wish you all the best, all of you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing an epitome of knowledge and experience with us, and we're very privileged to have you here. Now, I would like Sudeshna to please offer you a token of gratitude from MDI students.
On behalf of the PGP 2014 batch, I would like to thank you for the enriching session. It's been an honor to have you here, and the anecdotes that you provided and the insights that you provided would definitely help us to make better use of the 2 years that we have here. And we would certainly keep an eye open for the megatrends that are coming up. Thank you, sir.
Let me take this opportunity to convey my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Anil Kumar Serawat. It was a very indecent kind of proposal because I recently met him and I promptly asked him whether he can come from Bangkok to address our students, because I found him really energetic, knowledgeable and well conversed with what is happening around. I am really thankful to you, sir, for coming over and accepting our invitation. And we would like to see more of you, and whenever you happen to come to this part of the world, please don't forget us. Do come over, enjoy the hospitality of MDI, and I am sure that you will enjoy more interaction with the students of MDI, because students at MDI, they are looking forward to listen to the eminent personalities like you. Thank you very much.
One more thing, my email, my contact details are with Dr. Kapil. So whenever you visit that part of the world, Bangkok is not a bad place. It's a nice place to come back to. And you will see a lot of managers. So please feel free anytime you can give me a call or write to me, and whatever support we can extend, we will. Thank you.